welcome back to What If History Restarted. This is episode 22. Last time, Cypriots started to get very unstable, but they kinda sorted it out, but not really. North Italy and Gibraltar kicked Germany out of their alliance, and now there's the Star Alliance, which is opposed to the Square Alliance. Turn on the cities. We had these nations pop up along the trade routes, and that's pretty much everything major. So, just sticking over here. So these countries that were along the trade routes, like I said last time, are getting very rich very quick. This trade route has really picked up in popularity, because there's still no trade route across here, so this is the only way to get to China and Japan. The only effective way, really, because can always go like this, but there's just not as much as a developed route here. Plus it takes longer, probably. So, because of that, there's a ton of trade around here. Pretty much it's the Silk Road. Maybe even like more important, and this might be earlier in history, not sure. Because essentially Rome is still around. So, but anyway, because of that, a lot of these surrounding lands are going to get explored. So I was a little bit down here in India, so I'm just around here. And now these trade routy nations are going to start to grow and expand past the trade route so that they can use more natural resources to get, more stuff to trade with and sell. However, if we look on the religion map, you will see that these guys are mostly part of this northern Chinese religion, and that this religion shares a border with this sort of Russian guys. And these guys, they're starting to finally really get wind of this, and they don't really like it. So let's just go ahead and select them. Basically, what we see is down in this area, we see, actually, it will probably be of this. No. Okay, sorry about that, but basically, we see that all subgroups of this Russian religion kind of just pop up into one nation. These tribal people are finally assembling into a nation, and their capital. Well, they aren't going to have a capital yet because they're still pretty much nomads. I'm doing this on the city layer. That's not right. Oh, but not all of it, I guess. Okay. But yeah. So these guys start going down. And they have a lot of population, surprisingly. Out of, if we, expand them over here and stuff, maybe go into this river area. And this is, where most of these Russian guys live, down here. Most of this area is actually pretty empty because it's too close to Europe, so they wanted to get out of there. So this is where most of the Russians are. So they all kind of work together pretty well, and they're going to go ahead and expand all the way down this river and meet up with the Cypriots. They're very big. Now that they meet up with the Cypriots, however, they're going to throw down capital, which will probably just be right here. As you can see, they're starting to get into more pinkish, reddish religions, so, that's something. But a lot of these people actually kind of don't mind because they were scared of the Cypriots, but now they get to be here. So, pretty quickly, you actually see the Russian religion starts expanding. There we go. And, yeah. So this, weird greenish thing, I don't even know what this is. Yeah, I don't know why. Oh, this was just another subgroup of the Russians. That's why. So, yeah. So this group kind of starts expanding, and pretty much it starts to become the one culture of the Russians in this new state. So now it kind of looks like this, because these are now the truly nomadic people, Can even like push them up a little bit here. Might as well. So not too far because they probably don't want to freeze, but maybe they're just good at not freezing. I don't know. Let's do like that. How about on this island? Why not? Yes, this dark Russian people are now pretty strong. And actually they're gonna start going on some invasions. So they start to invade both of these countries, capturing both their capitals, and now making contact with the trade route, which was their goal. With this, both these countries capitulate, because these guys now go ahead and steal all their technology, which is going to make them much more powerful than they already were. So we now see them roll into this one. However, this guy is actually going to fight back, so it pushes up like here, and like here, and now the war kind of stalemates, and we see a peace treaty occur. Probably should have just had the trade routes off, but these guys get pretty much just the land that they claimed, respectively. Of course, we gotta update the cities, so bam, bam, bam. So yeah, rest in peace to these three countries, as these guys are now actually like probably top 10 powers. Cypriots are kind of just not bothering with them right now. But these guys are now gonna go ahead and look at these trade route people, and basically the whole reason I started doing this is because they finally like got the information about the trade routes, and they really don't like how like they're kind of like making this materialistic empire. That's what they see it as, because they're like, they live off the land and stuff, so they don't like that. But anyway, because of that, they're gonna try and get some revenge on these guys by invading them. And with their new technology, and they have the technology from these guys, but they also have their very different and not before seen military tactics, so they're actually like extremely difficult to stop. And basically they're just gonna keep going into these countries and invading them like this. That's all. Anyway, these guys get destroyed, but now people are starting to realize that that they don't like this thing. So we see Orange Ukraine is going to expand all the way out to here, and is actually going to start its invasion of these guys, the Russian Empire. These guys are going to quickly annex all three of these countries. Well, actually, they're going to occupy them. That would make more sense. So, they already are doing that. But now they're going to try and fight Orange Ukraine. However, this guy, as well as this guy, and maybe even Lake Baikal, if we just stretch it all the way over here. And also, let's just update the religion map real quick. Bam. That's probably about accurate. Yeah. So yeah, all these countries border it, and now we're going to start invading it to try and get it back. However, I just explained why they're really strong, and that it's definitely not gone away. They do have Lake Baikal going into them now, and they are a pretty strong country. However, these guys are also very strong. Probably stronger than them by this point. In these like 20 years, I'd say it's been since they first turned into a state, nation, country, whatever. So they just start steamrolling through Orange Ukraine, push it all the way back to here. And they also go ahead and annex a lot of this empty territory. And now we can see them start to push into St. Petersburg. And also the Square team. So, are they overextending and invading way too many countries at once? Definitely. But they don't care. They're just going to keep invading and expanding. the war kind of stalemates, and these guys just expand, but they're looking nice and big now. And also over here, they're focusing over here in the west, where they now have captured St. Petersburg, the capital, as well as much of this valuable land. And their invasion into the square team countries has actually kind of toppled this one. And they now ride even further over here, taking over all of this. Basically, a lot of people think this is like the end times, and that this is just some like punishment, divine punishment or something. Let's get another color. Bam. But yeah, the square team almost does this, but they don't want to get involved in this war just yet. But yeah, these guys are just getting absolutely obliterated. Soon enough, they're all the way like this. By now, it's probably been like 30 or 40 years, because this war has actually been pretty slow. I mean, it's kind of just like, it's not really even a uniform war. It's just kind of like a series of these guys going on invasions, and these guys going on, rebellion against the invasions. But because they focus so hard over here, we can now see that this one front line has gone very far. With all these guys, as well as this guy, making big strides to kill these guys, but notably not the Cypriots. These guys are gonna go ahead and do all this and all that. So yeah, that's fun. They also invade this one, and that goes pretty well for them, as you can see. They're now gonna start pushing back over here, where pretty quickly they topple over all of these minor countries, and now start pushing into Lake Baikal. As we now approach the 50-year mark of their reign, take this lake, move all the way up to Lake Baikal, and start getting near the capital. These guys still have just like countless native people pouring into their empire, fueling their population, as they also get more and more of the Russians up here. And these guys have very quickly become probably the largest country. Well, actually, 21. Yep, they're not much larger, but they are larger than the Cypriots. But speaking of them, these guys are starting to get exhausted, but honestly not as much as you probably think, as they cut Lake Baikal in two and this half falls over. They continue pushing in. However, you're going to see that the Cypriots are finally going to decide to put a stop to this. So they very quickly approach the capital where the leader is, but the leader is going to go in on horseback and lead his army through the Cypriot lands, pretty much encircle the Caspian Sea, as the leader basically just goes from here up to here, and now plans to go over here to Cyprus and kill their leader. However, as he is making his way over here, the leader of Cyprus goes ahead and cuts his head off. So this leader, this guy, pretty much this world's Genghis Khan, was very important to his people. So this little flank just immediately falls back. And now there's a power struggle as we see all of his 20 kids try and get power of the throne. This guy was in his 70s. He started when he was 18. Started being leader. This is basically just his empire. However, now that he is dead, they do not have his tactics. And basically, the most powerful people in the country, which are his sons, are going to start murdering each other and fighting each other. And pretty soon, the entire country just, Baikal pushes it back. And we'll just do this, and obviously this is not accurate, I'm just showing that they're dying. But yeah, basically they just get obliterated. And with them being completely destroyed, we'll see. Sorry, we will now see the peace treaty for the war. We just gotta roll them all the way back. So this probably might not take a while because of how fast they expanded. But yeah. So just gotta make these countries normal again. And then those guys. I think that was the first countries they invaded. Okay. Nope. There we go. Okay, so first of all, obviously the world is kind of reset, but not all the way. Well, we do gotta readjust the religion layer now. By this point, the Russians have they've done their thing, and this darker religion has become extremely prevalent all throughout these areas. We'll fill in that. I don't know. I think these guys are have a soft border for some reason, so I do just fix that real quick. But yeah, these guys are very big of a people now. And yeah, bound to the actual borders. So first of all, maybe surprisingly, these guys are still going to be incorporated into this empire. As well as probably this country. So, cities. Make it easier on ourselves. So yeah, these guys are kind of looking like this. Meanwhile, over here, this green team actually did a lot of work. So they're going to get a good amount of land, including access to the sea and a major city. They will also be getting access to the trade route via this country. Speaking of this country, it needs a new capital. So basically, it's just going to kind of build their own trade route. Make a capital city on it, just because they really want to be on this. I'm dying. As for these guys, well, first of all, a good amount of land got explored and all this, so there was some positives. Hooray. Yeah, these guys are looking like this, so they would probably be all the way over here by now. These guys are just going to expand partially into these guys, but I think not that much. Keep in mind that this land was kind of developed by these guys, so it still is useful in a way. And Lake Baikal is also going to be getting a pretty good chunk right here. So, oh yeah, the Cypriots also are going to be getting some land out of this, surprisingly, including this major city. But they also just move up here and into this river a little bit. But they do not take the capital. But the thing is, this is not going to last, as like I said, he had 20 kids, and they were all fighting for each other, fighting and killing each other, and eventually about 8 were left, not even 8, 4 were left alive. So each one of those 4 is going to get their own chunk of the empire. So you see this one all the way over here. Gotta fill in these lakes and river. This is the Volga, right? But yeah, we got this country. Their capital will be right here. We got one right over. We'll make them this color. This one's kind of. That's why is that? Oh yeah, it's on the city layer. Yeah, these guys kind of near Lake Baikal. Let's make them. There's not a lot of dark. I don't know. There's this one. We'll make them just like these greens right here. I guess we can go with like this. Guys have a capital right there. Bash would probably be lower. We will also have to take this lake to show that this lake has been explored. And as for the other two suns, we have this kind of like more. This is the more like previously, like quote unquote civilized area. So why does that exist? Where is that? Is that no? Aha! Get out. But yeah, so this is kind of like where the more like quote unquote civilized countries were. Although I might actually swap its color. So we'll have, let's just be a placeholder. And then this is that. Oh, never mind, I guess. Okay, well this country is kind of like the core territory. We'll just make it the Russian religion color. And then this country is kind of left over. So we see maybe like a gold country right here. And yes, that is how that happened. So now this part of the world map is much more filled in. And that was the Russian Empire. Also, Orange Ukraine takes this. I don't really know if this is Ukraine. It's more like Belarus. Or like Kiev and Rus, maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, moving on. Over here, we see that due to the kind of lowered morale from this this star team forming, we're going to see that there's a little bit of a rebellion down in actually both of these countries. Right here in the Catalonia region, mostly from this major city. But yeah, these guys are actually going to be very powerful. It's pretty much like they make like pretty much no resistance, and so they get all the way to be like this. And so these guys are gonna have no option to give them but to give them independence, and basically their borders are going to look something like this. They do get these islands. They also get a nice chunk out of Iberia. The thing is, though, that the people in the city want to still be part of Gibraltar, so that they are still going to be it. But also there's some farmland out here that was owned by the rich people in this city. So this farmland is going to have to very confusingly be another exclave. Exclaves, really. And, just more farmland, feudalism, weird stuff, I don't know. Just pretend that there's a reason for this border war, and not just because I want it. But, I mean, I feel like that's realistic. That was happening around this time. Anyway, Brittany and Wales unite. Well, it's more like Cornwall. So yeah, that was very unexpected, but actually these two countries had close relations, and even though they're the same religion, so this makes sense. Let's just do this. The capital would probably be in Europe, because that's closer to that's on the trade route, I believe, yes. Well, this one's not. But I gave them Wales's color, because I like that more. Cornwall, whatever. That's gonna be it for Britain. And is that going to be it for this video? I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say no, because So we're going to look at the religion map and see if there's any discrepancies, because I feel like I've probably forgotten something by this point. Yes, that is kind of an issue. So there's going to be some ethnic cleansing down here, as we see that the whoa, is that right? No. The African Union wants all their country to be this, so that happens. And the original yellow religion is slowly dying. Hijaz is very upset that they can't really expand, so we'll intellect develop land, but they're just gonna have to expand out here instead. Should make some interesting borders, but that's fine, I guess. We haven't looked at the Americas in a while. So over here we see this yellow religion, well, not religion, it's a yellow country. They've become very big, they're very prosperous, everything's going great here. They even have some of the Caribbean islands for themselves. However, if you don't know, this is a very hurricane-y area. Tons of hurricanes come through here. That works. But yeah, tons of hurricanes come through here. And basically, they just recovered from a pretty bad hurricane. But now there's the worst one that they've ever seen is going to come up here and just tear through them. And it's going to be so bad that the entire civilization collapses. So probably be some, like, obscure, lost, not even obscure, but just some, like, lost civilization in the future. For future learners of this world. But yeah, they're dead. Goodbye. Forever. Probably. Let's see, down here. Over here, the coastal Chile thing. That's not right. But, so yeah, there's gonna be some more exploration here. These guys actually make it all the way over to the coast. Chile, I guess, is going to expand some more, barely pushing past the Andes. This country also goes pretty far. This country meets up with these two, and they hate each other, but they can't really do anything about it because they're far away. However, where do you see that another group of people from this country forms a country? And also, I have not made any of the waters here explored. I don't think I did it for this one either, but now it's dead, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, oh, that's not nice. Okay, we'll have to fix this one's color because it's way too close to the ocean. Sure. And then lastly, yeah, I mean, I could do something like, I'll do something in Australia after. So almost lastly, but not quite, we see that the, I almost said Jewish for some reason, that the Seattlean people are gonna want to kind of get some revenge on this country. I kind of think that, I'm pretty sure that Seattle was the one that started it, not sure, don't remember. But regardless, they're going to be expanding a lot. Not that much. That's not even them. I don't know what that is. But yeah, they look all the way like this now. Meanwhile, California just went through a civil war, and we now have South California being a thing. So, that's not great for them. South California is going to want to kind of get away from them in a sense. So, they go ahead and explore a lot more land and take some of it, so that they do not have to be, so they can have some of their population far away from these guys. North California. We'll just stop over here real quick. We see that this country takes over this one, but then a coalition forms against this guy, so they get beat back severely, but they do still exist. But they're just going to be much smaller. And now look like this. There's a civil war in this country, and a new government is installed. And this new government is pretty expansionist. So, first thing they do isn't really bad though. They just buy a chunk out of this country, and then they explore some land and just expand into it. Now, finally, moving over to Australia, we see that this really big one is actually pretty stable. A lot of the people like living here because it's very powerful compared to these other guys. So it is only going to get bigger, and eventually this guy is going to work together with it to kind of partition Tasmania, but they are unable to take the actual islands, just the mainland. The people in this country are not happy, though, so there's going to be a failed rebellion, but these guys do still remain here. These guys start also expanding up here, and a lot more ocean is explored, obviously. Swoosh, swoosh, bam. Maybe they find this islands. Like this. They do not take it though. And then this guy, we'll just say it collapses. Because why not? You always have to have some collapsed civilizations. That's always fun to do. But with that, that's going to be the end of this video. Main thing that happened, you know, just because why not, we'll give these guys some land in Sumatra. But anyway, main thing that happened was the Russian Empire, but that guy didn't last very long. Very unstable. But yeah, that's how the world map is looking. It actually is pretty different now in this area. But yeah, goodbye.